Hi, this is Shauna, the CEO and founder of Fuel Talent. One of the things I have loved most in my 25-year recruiting career has always been the stories that people tell. Stories of leadership, career choices, company ideas, and team building. My inspiration for starting the What Fuels You podcast came from being curious about people's lives and wanting to help share their stories. What path brought them to this place? What decisions did they make that led to failures and successes? Who influenced those decisions, and what lessons were learned along the way? I hope you enjoy the What Fuels You podcast. Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is David Wasielewski. David is the managing partner at one of Seattle's favorite restaurants, Tai Fung. David was granted the first non-family operated franchise by the company and has opened 4 Washington locations and 1 Oregon location over the last 10 years. David holds his MBA, has been a Puget Sound Business Journal 40 Under 40 honoree and an Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year recipient. He's also been a member of YPO, the Young Presidents Organization, for the past 7 years and is currently finishing up a Harvard Business School executive program, which I think is like 9 years, something crazy and very impressive. So welcome, David. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you. What a treat. So we're going to start with rapid fire. Speaking of treats, are we steamed or fried dumpling fan?
Steam. It's healthier.
Steamed. I noticed. Oh gosh, are we talking health? Because DTF is my guilty pleasure. Just so you know. I need you to tell me what to order if I'm trying to be healthy, because I love Tai Fung.
Thank you. Yeah. You should come over and we'll have lunch together.
I would love that.
Yeah.
What's your all-time favorite movie?
Oh, geez, I tell you, Top Gun comes into mind. That was the first movie that I watched in the U.S.
Oh, well, so I know exactly
that's always
what time period we're at.
Yeah, that tells you back in the late 80s, early 90s, that time frame.
That was such a good movie. I watched, that's one of the movies I've seen over and over and over again.
Not only was that a good movie, but it was my first movie in a U.S. theater, so it was a memorable one.
An experience, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to hear about your transition coming here to the U.S., so we'll get into it. What word would your YPO forum use to describe you?
Probably calm.
Calm. Everybody needs a calm member of the forum, right?
I'm not the crazy one. We got a few of those. I'm probably the even keel, calm one.
Even keeled and calm. Is there a habit that you're currently trying to create?
I'm trying to learn how to meditate.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
I'm doing a 30-day calm app. Application around meditating. And I find it so powerful when I do it, but really difficult to discipline myself to do it.
Right. So I started doing yoga, mainly because with COVID, for the longest time, we couldn't go into the gyms and I can't go to Bellevue Club to swim. So I started doing yoga at home, and part of yoga is meditation, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm one of those guys that just use yoga for the exercise aspect of it, but not the mental aspect. So whenever it's time to meditate or just lay there and do nothing, that's when I shut off and get up and move on to the next thing. So I'm trying to learn and benefit from the meditation power.
The stillness of it is important. That's when sometimes the best ideas come. Yeah. What personal characteristic has helped you lead your team during this pandemic?
I like to think that one of my biggest assets is just the ability to handle pressure. Mm-hmm. So, not that I know anything and not that I know all the answers, but I think I stay pretty calm and try my best to just fight through it, and knowing that, I give the best possible chance to myself, to my team, and hopefully being a good leader and lead everyone through this crisis that we're in.
Yeah. If there was a book that was written about you and your life, what would it be called?
Oh, man.
That's a tough one, right? I hope no one ever asks me that.
That is a tough one. I'm going to have to think about that and get back to you. That's a tough one.
That's a really tough one.
I tell you though, I don't think my life story is all that interesting, to be honest. I think
It is. You just don't see it that way. Most people don't see their own life story as interesting.
Perhaps, but I think I'm just a normal guy. I work really hard. I got really lucky, and I think if you combine that plus a little bit of guidance from people around you, you have a chance to be successful. And I think that's really me in a nutshell for the last 10 years.
So should we call it The Normal Guy?
Yeah, there you go.
Just a normal guy?
Just a normal guy.
Just a normal guy. What is something that people would be surprised to learn about you?
I'm in the restaurant industry, but I don't cook. I don't know how to cook very well. So
like at all? Well, that's good because you can just order in.
Basic stuff I can do, but certainly not any restaurant chef level. People always find that funny that I'm in the restaurant industry and I don't really know how to cook.
Are you would you call yourself a foodie? Are you passionate about food?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love to go eat.
All you need to know is how to eat, right? You don't need to know how to cook.
So whenever I travel, I think food is definitely, we build our schedule around restaurants we want to go, right?
Yeah.
So definitely a foodie and love my industry. But it's very different.
It's a tough industry, and we're going to get into that. Tell me about you. You were born where?
Taipei, Taiwan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be in Taipei when the pandemic hit.
It's the safest place in the world.
That was actually where we were supposed to go for my forum in EO, because Andy Liu is in my forum, and so we had this whole great trip planned, and they had it so well contained because everywhere they went, they did what we're doing now, which is taking the temperature and masks. But that was so foreign, to me in late February, early March,
right.
Or mid-March, I guess, is when we made the decision not to go, half of us, and it just felt overwhelming. And it's the safest place. So that's where you're from. And then when did you move to the US and what brought you here?
When I was, I want to say 12 or 13, my mom, single mom, my sister and I, the three of us came to the States, and it's really one of those, the American dream story, right? She wanted to better our lives by sacrificing her own, and left a country where her family and friends were and came to a place where we didn't really know anyone. Not only did I not speak English, my mom's English was not that great. But she just knew deep down in her heart that this is the right move for me and my sister.
And how did she pick Seattle?
So believe it or not, she went to a fortune teller.
Oh, I love this. I love that. That's the best.
She gave him 5 or 6 cities. So, New York, LA, San Francisco, the usual ones, right?
I'm surprised Seattle was on there in the midst of that, because at that time it was a town.
Yeah. But the guy said you should go to the most northwestern part of US as possible. So there you go. Seattle was the one.
And so she was a single mom. Is your dad in the picture or no?
No, my biological father and my mom got divorced when I was 3. So it's been that long, and we kept in touch at the beginning for the first few years, but really hasn't been the case in the last couple of decades, especially since we live in Seattle now. So there's no we're not in contact anymore. So our family really is just me, my mom, and my sister, and because of that background and moving to a new country. And learning everything together, and I was the baby in the group, so a lot of times my mom and my sister will shield me from a lot of the problems that they went through, and just want to make sure that I don't worry too much. And I was way too young to understand any of that. And but I think that's what kept us so tight, even to today, where the three of us are very, very tight. My sister and I have a great sibling relationship, and I respect both of them tremendously. My mom in particular, I wouldn't be here without her. It's not just her bringing me to Seattle, but just the overall kind of the guidance she's always given me throughout life, and entrepreneurship and everything about me. anything good, I think, came out of her for sure.
Yeah. And what was her messaging when you were little? Like, was it very clear to you what she valued?
It wasn't. I think as a 12 or 13-year-old, to tell you the truth, it was a struggle for me, right? It was fifth or sixth grade. As a boy, you a lot of energy, you're out there playing with your friends, and all of a sudden I got moved to a city and I had no friends, and I couldn't make friends because I didn't speak English. And so for the first year and a half, not only was it a struggle for me, but I was probably pretty mean to my mom, my sister, from the perspective of just like, why'd you move me here?
Oh, I'm sure you had a lot of resentment and anger. That's totally
normal. But things got better after a couple of years, and started playing more basketball with the neighborhood guys, and got comfortable a little bit more. And obviously now I'm forever grateful for her decision to move me here. But
how was the lifestyle different? Like, paint me a picture of your lifestyle in Taipei, even just the economic opportunity there versus here, because you hear a lot of these stories of like, oh, we were living like, this kind of lavish lifestyle there, and we came here and it was different.
I wouldn't say we were the top 1% back in Taiwan, but we were living very comfortably. We had a maid, driver, and all that stuff. But coming here, and my mom essentially stopped working, we had to face the reality of just being able to manage our finances as a family. So I would say we were probably middle class growing up. I grew up down in Federal Way. Back then it was a small town. Now it's a city. Just very normal life, right?
Yeah.
As a kid, you hang out with the neighborhood guys, you play a lot of basketball. Went through the school system, and growing up in Seattle, UW was the school, right? So
that's where I went to. Go Dogs!
I want to be a Husky, and literally I only applied for UW. I didn't apply any other school. And looking back, that was probably not the smartest move, because I didn't have a backup option, right? I only applied UW.
Well, you got in.
It was also easier to get in back then, right?
Yeah, it was. Are you kidding? Of course.
Back then they took everybody, and now it's a little bit harder for sure.
Yeah. But how is being from Taiwan, as far as the culture? How has your family been able to keep it alive, and what aspects of the culture resonate the most for you?
So, I think the language, for sure, I was able to maintain due to the fact that I speak to my mom in Chinese, and the fact that I love the food, and so from that perspective, I think I kept the culture pretty well. But living in the U.S. and growing up in the U.S. and being U.S. school educated, it certainly broadened my horizon, and I kind of look at things from both perspectives, and it really allowed me to give me more of a international outlook on various things. And so people here, when they talk about particularly China or Taiwan or Hong Kong, I think I just have a leg up when talking to the average person, just because
absolutely.
I grew up from that region, and still have some friends over there that gives me some good insight as to what's happening down there. So I think it made me a more competitive person compared to the average person who's never left Seattle. The world's so small now, right, with Google and everything, but I actually lived through it, right? So I think that gives me a pretty good perspective. And growing up, for a period of time when I didn't speak English, and kids can be mean, and I got picked on a little bit. I can't even
imagine, especially at that exact age. That's the most vulnerable.
Yeah, I got picked on a little bit, and so I'm very sympathetic, right, for people, and a lot more aware of my actions and how translates into the other side, and how the people on the other side receives whatever it is that I say or do. So I'm trying to be more mindful about other people's feelings because what I went through. So,
well, I'm sure it makes you an incredible friend, a great leader, a great contributor to the community, all of it. So when you went to UW, you studied economics.
Correct.
That was great insight. I mean, people choose all sorts of things. I was a sociology major. like, studying economics, like you can kind of go on to do lots of different things, but you went right after school. Is this right, to go work at Intel, or did you get an MBA first?
So after UW, I actually spent 5 years as a stockbroker, and I worked.
Oh,
Yeah, I worked.
I didn't
Yeah,
even know
that
that
wasn't that
part.
wasn't in my intro, I guess. I
Oh,
worked
oh.
for back then it was called Payne Weber. Now
Hmm.
it's UBS Payne Weber.
Oh yeah. They were a client of mine. I've been recruiting for 26 years.
Oh,
So
really?
I
Yeah,
recruited for Payne Weber. Yes.
yeah. So I worked for them for 2-3 years, and then got an offer from across the street at a firm called Oppenheimer,
Yeah.
the IBC
Also another
Oppenheimer.
client.
Yeah,
Yep.
so literally was across the street on Fifth Avenue. We moved our books over and did that for a couple more years. And while
Yeah.
that 5-year time frame, the latter part of the 5 years, I went to Seattle U and got my MBA.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, there
so
was a whole little chunk of your life that I
yeah,
just kind of tossed
yeah.
out.
So after my MBA, and I had to make a decision. Say, do I do something with my MBA, or do I continue this track
Yeah.
of financial advisor, stockbroker, which an MBA did help, but not necessary.
Yeah.
It's
Well, you
more of a
needed your
sales
7 and
person.
63,
Correct.
but
Yeah.
not
Which yeah,
necessarily.
exactly. So um, I decided to change career, and that's when I got into Intel.
Hmm.
And timing couldn't have been better because literally the minute I got into Intel, that was when the market started to crash.
Mm.
So
Yes, being a stockbroker at that time would
yeah,
not be.
so yeah, it's very, and then it's a lot of people that I used to work with at the brokerage firm ended up quitting, and
Hmm.
they just didn't have any book anymore. So
Yeah.
and
So
I,
when you
and
targeted technology, was that specifically like, I want to work for Intel, or where else did you interview?
no, I knew I want to get into tech because that was sort of the thing, right? And still
Hmm.
is, right? But certainly back then it was the thing. And my sister worked at Intel,
Mm.
and she had a job offer from a different group that she declined. And the hiring manager asked her, "Hey, if you know anybody, please let me know."
Oh,
And she goes,
perfect.
"As a matter of fact, my brother just graduated, and he has similar skill sets
Yeah.
and can speak Chinese. And they were looking for someone to help deploy software in Asia,
Oh,
particularly
perfect.
China." So they flew me down to the Bay Area, and I interviewed and got the offer, and off I went.
That's great. And so
Yeah.
that job took you kind of all over Asia,
Yeah.
right?
It was. I was a marketing manager, global marketing manager with a focus in Asia, and then I travel around the world. And
Wow.
I'm very thankful for that job for Intel. I was with them for almost 10 years. Very
Yeah.
thankful. I think a lot of what I do today, I contribute to that job because I
Yeah. How
learned.
was the culture there at Intel, and what things did you take from that experience to
So
say, they're
big,
transferable across any
yeah.
industry?
So big firm, right?
Hmm.
Big company. And certainly back then, you're looking at probably 15, 20 years ago, it was definitely one of the bigger companies that
Yeah.
people wanted to work for.
Yeah.
It's lost a little steam recently because of the Facebook and the Google, and so it's not as sexy. But back then, certainly was one of the big firms
Yes.
in the Bay Area. So very big firm and structured. Very. I learned a lot about dealing with people from different culture, because such an international business. And we had teams all over the world. We had customers all over the world, and I travel
Hmm.
all over the world. So again, I think it just continued to build my awareness of people from different backgrounds and how
Hmm.
people like to be treated, how I like to be treated, and so on and so forth. So I was in the sales and marketing department, and so it was a great learning opportunity for me.
Yeah. And
That
when you were
had
working there and traveling to Asia, is that where you first got exposed to Din Tai Fung?
Yeah, so Din Tai Fung is just like Starbucks for people in Seattle. Like,
Okay.
if you grew up in Seattle, you know about Starbucks. It just was that popular in Taiwan. So coming out from Taiwan, certainly knew the brand, but during my travel was when I started getting exposed to it. So every city in Asia that I would go to, I would look up Din Tai Fung and say, "Hey, is there one? If so, I got to make a trip." And
It's like people going to In-N-Out Burger when they go to
exactly
California.
That's how I explain to people in terms
Oh, really? I was just thinking it
yeah.
because I'm like, my kids, when we go to California,
No,
are
it's
like, can we
it's
go to In-N-Out? We need
you
to
know,
buy an In-N-Out. Maybe that's your next move. Get one of those too.
I wish, but I, I people ask me what is so special about Din Tai Fung, and I tell them, I said it just has that cult like following,
It's an
just like In-N-Out,
experience. It's
just
also
like
an
In-N-Out.
experience, though. In-N-Out's not In-N-Out's, I guess, an experience. But when I think of DTF, I think of
Sure,
an experience from watching them make the
yeah,
dumplings to waiting in line because it's
yeah.
always packed
But
to just
not too
all
many
of it.
brands, not too many restaurant brands out there where I can see people, look up the locations, and if there happen to
Yeah.
be, in that same city, they'll drive,
Yeah.
half an
Schlep
hour,
to go
whatever.
find the place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I'm very lucky and proud to be part of the brand. And
Yeah. Tell me about the family, because as I said in your intro, you're the first one.
yeah, it was
It sounds like maybe the only one to buy the franchise.
incredibly honorable people, incredibly down to earth.
Hmm.
All they care about is to preserve what their father built and make sure they don't ruin the brand and
The integrity of the
yeah, exactly.
product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So great people. And it took me 3.5 years to convince them to let me be their partner here in Seattle. While I was working at Intel in the Bay Area, there was one summer, so it was the third summer of that 3-year period, where I literally would fly down every weekend from Bay Area to LA. I did that for probably 9 or 10 trips. So one whole summer, every weekend I would go down there and work. And I'll cut out work a little early around noon on Friday. I'll fly
Hmm.
down to LA. I check in the hotel, and I report to the restaurant by 4. That's the PM shift start time. I work a Friday night, I work a Saturday double, I work a Sunday morning, and then I'm back at the Bay Area flight, 5:30, back in the Bay Area, and get ready for my Monday through Friday at Intel. And I did that for the whole summer. And finally, the family said, we need to have a family meeting because I need to tell this kid, if I should just let him do it or not, because I can't keep having him come to LA every weekend, and I'm not paying the guy, and he just keeps
That's
showing up.
incredible. How did you have such a vision and conviction that
I,
this was the right move for your
you know,
life?
I think I will say a couple of things. Number one, I think I learned the power of branding, marketing through my Intel experience, and not too many powerful brands like that coming out of Asia. I think particularly Taiwan and China at the time were great at manufacturing for other brands, but never really a brand of their own. Then Typhoon was
Interesting.
one where I saw, okay, wow, this one has legs. I think, that's when that was the beginning of a lot of these Asian concepts started coming out.
Starting to come. And
Right.
how did you know that it would translate? And also, who were your first customers as far as their profile? Like,
So I knew that if I get the opportunity to run Din Tai Fung in Seattle, I would do it in a way that we would capture businesses from um, all people, right? Not just the Chinese. So started with picking the right location. And I said to myself, if I'm walking around town, I said, okay, well, where is Cheesecake located? Where is PF Chang located? And those are the bigger national brands. But then if you look at the bigger local brands like Daniel's, okay, where are they located? Oh, okay, downtown Bellevue Square. So that's where I need to be with the big boys. So that was sort of the vision. And then and we were the first in Tai Fung with a full bar menu. And I knew that was also important aspect of our success. I think that we have to translate it so that it's not just a come in and get some great dumplings, but it's a dining experience, right? So you have to have the visual, which is why we have the dumpling room right outside of our restaurant so people can see what they're about to eat. And we have to create an environment where people are enjoying their time while they're there, which means the place has to be nice and clean and the right atmosphere. And I think, while you're eating the great food that we provide, you need to have the right drinks, whether it's a glass of white wine or a cocktail or beer, whatever your choice is, to complement the great food and make it an experience versus a a cafeteria like In and Out.
Right. In and out.
Yeah,
quick,
we don't. Yeah, exactly. So
what is the percentage of business for lunch versus dinner?
dinner definitely is stronger, and weekends definitely stronger than the weekdays. But I would say we're probably 70-30. So dinner 70%.
And I've actually done a few lunches there with clients when I'm coming over to Bellevue. So I know that it's called kind of like specializing in soup dumplings.
Yep.
I'm just super curious because when I come, I get everything. I love the green beans. I like just like a potpourri of like all your best.
Yeah.
And I would actually say that, I try not to eat pork, but I would love to just say, hey, bring me your favorites and see kind of where that lands. And so what would you suggest if you were bringing people in that had never come in?
People always ask me, hey, David, what is your favorite dish?
Yeah.
And I always tell people it's not just a one thing.
I know that's the problem. You can't just have
when
one.
you come, our concept is so unique where it's a combination of 3-4 dishes together. You have to have a little bit of rice with the green beans, but the spicy wonton, the sauce that goes on the rice.
I'm getting hungry, David.
And then our juicy pork dumpling is their signature dish, and a little bit of soy sauce and vinegar and ginger. So it really is the combination, and the more people, the better, because then everyone's you're ordering the whole menu, and
then you get to have little bites and nibbles.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that's the unique experience that we offer, is the family style aspect of eating.
Yes.
And a lot of cultures actually do that, right? So I think that's why we're so popular by all people, because we offer an experience that 3-4 generations in the same family come through, and we also get a lot of corporate businesses too, and so I think that's part of the reason.
And so, which of the soup dumplings is most popular?
It's the pork shalom. No, it's the pork shalom bao. So it's the pork juicy pork dumpling. It's our famous.
My mouth is watering just having this conversation.
Thank you. Me too.
Man. Yeah. Do you ever I'm sure you never get sick of it. But also, does the yoga keep you trim? I mean, it's not. I
tell you, by November of this year, it will be our 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
After almost 10 years, I still eat my own food probably 3, 4, 5 times a week. I don't get sick of it.
Yeah, well, you won't need to learn how to cook anytime soon.
Exactly, exactly. I have a few kitchens I can always ask them to make me food.
Yeah, so it's been 10 years, and you've been growing, adding it just seems like maybe like every couple of years, a new location. So this conversation is pre-COVID, and then we can get into COVID. So pre-COVID, what was your growth strategy and your growth plans?
So 10 years ago, without knowing how to run a business, certainly not knowing how to run a restaurant, I just wanted to open a successful restaurant and not lose any money, right? Mm-hmm. So, a little bit of background on that. I mean, I came from a middle class, and so I didn't have that much money. Certainly not that much money to open a 7,200 square feet restaurant in Bellevue, right?
Yeah. Well, and not all the build Bellevue, but the most expensive real estate.
Right. And going up against Kemper Development Company, and it's not the cheapest rent in town for sure. No. So so what happened was I had to cash out my stock options. I had to cash out my 401k, any little savings I had, and I went all in. I was still short.
Wow.
So my mom ended up taking literally mortgage her house.
Oh, and these stories, I hear these a lot.
And it's incredible. I remember her, I hear her telling my sister, and my sister's like, are you sure you want to do this? It's kind of risky. And my mom said, if I'm going to invest in stocks where companies that have other people running the company, I might as well, I bet on my own son. I'm going to let my son run my money, if you will, and invest in his company. So there was a lot of pressure, but
I can't even imagine.
So my very first unit, I just wanted to make sure I don't lose any money. And then we were literally a success from day one. I mean, I still remember that very first weekend when we opened, 4.5 hour wait. It was just incredible. So
did anything go terribly wrong in that first year?
Oh, yeah, everything. We didn't anticipate the strong business to that level.
So you weren't prepared as far as like supply and demand, like we don't have enough food?
Food and people, right? People to make the food and people to
Yeah.
take the customers. And I was not a restaurant person, nor was I a good business person.
Yeah.
You know, so everything was bad. But luckily for us, business is strong. So as we all know, you know, running our own businesses, sales solves a lot of problems, right?
Yeah.
So we had the sales, and so the first one was just to not lose money, and then 2 years later, and I said, okay, well, we're really busy every night at Bellevue. We're doing huge numbers. I think we can open one more, and let's try it on the Seattle side, on the other side of the water. So then that's when I met with Susie and Stuart over at U Village. Great people, great landlord, and we were able to strike a deal with them and open a second location. And thinking that the U Village location would draw some business away from Bellevue because Bellevue was just too busy. It didn't turn out that way. Both restaurants were too busy, as it turned out. And we saw the demand. I said, okay, now we kind of know what we're doing. I can really build a business out of this. That was also when I joined YPO, and a lot of great people in YPO sort of guided me through all that thinking, right?
Yeah. How did you learn? You started to say, like, I don't have a background in the restaurant business. Like, to me, that's huge to not have that background, because there's so many details and moving parts and logistics, and it's hourly workers. It's a whole different mentality than salaried workers. Like,
yeah.
How did you learn? Did you have a mentor?
So I've been very blessed to surround myself with great people. I've been blessed. So, you know, starting with my family, my mom, my sister, who just continued to give me the strength to fight through any hurdle I need to fight through. And then at the restaurant level, I have great people that many of them are still with me even today, 10 years later, right? And without any of them, I mean, I'm lucky because I'm the face of the company, but they do all the work. They should get all the credit. And
but how did you actually learn? Is there like restaurants for dummies? Like, how do you even know the first thing?
So we hired managers, and I was actually learning from the managers that I hire, and you know, we had 4 or 5 managers, and we learned from each of them and their background, and sort of put together our own package, if you will. And like I said, sales help with everything. So we had the sales, and so we were able to afford to make mistakes here and there. And
if you've got the revenue coming in, you can you can kind of deal.
And a lot of that really is the strength of the brand. Until this day, we don't spend any money on advertising, marketing. I mean, if you go,
it's so good. And I remember when it came,
it's literally zero. And I think it's just the strength of the brand. So, you know, at that time, globally speaking, Bellevue was store number 56, I think. Today, I think they just recently opened up store number 160.
Oh, my goodness.
In 10 years, they added another 110 stores globally. So I think that's how they do so how we do the marketing, right? Just by opening units and continue to provide the same experience for people who travel.
How many Din Tai Fungs are in the US?
There's 5 in Pacific Northwest, and my business partner down in California has 8. So 13.
And when you say business partner, is it an actual revenue share business partnership, or just business? Is it a partnership?
Yeah, so down in LA, that's the family that owns the Din Tai Fung brand. You know, his father was the founder.
Okay.
So he's my business partner. He actually is my equity partner here in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, he's loving you. He's like,
I hope so.
That was a great decision for the family.
I hope so. I think, you know, it was risky for him for sure, right?
Because you're just like, what if somebody just messes up the brand?
Yeah. So he bet on a guy who had no idea how to run a restaurant, no idea how to build a business. But
everybody says the same thing about you. I've heard about you before meeting you from so many people who just, I don't know what other word like in the Jewish culture we call it, like a mensch. Like, you're just a really good person, a really good guy. And it's like in business, when you're just starting there on like honor and like, this person's going to do the right thing. So for example, if something did get messed up, that you would be the type to bring it to the family, or, you know, just do the right thing. So pre-COVID, still in that zone, what has been the hardest thing, or kind of the biggest lessons you've learned from being in the restaurant industry?
Just the long hours. Coming from Intel, you're dealing with essentially everybody at a salary type of
Yeah.
level. Many of them with multiple college degrees, master's degree, doctorate degree, and all of a sudden you're dealing with a whole new generation of younger hourly staff. And if you go into the kitchen, you're dealing with a lot of non-English speaking staff. So, back in the Intel days, you give out an order, you meet again in a week and it's executed and you don't really worry about it. Now, you got to do a lot more babysitting, right?
Yeah.
And so that's probably the hardest adjustment. And then it's the, I used to be pampered working at a big company where everything was done for you. And now you're a small business owner, you're trying to save every dollar you can. So I still remember back in Intel days, I was working on my desk when somebody came and knocked on the door at my cubicle and said, I'm here to give you an ergonomic test, make sure you don't get carpal tunnel, if you have the right
Speaking of which, I'm sitting so poorly right now.
Yeah,
like, I should sit up straight.
Now at the restaurant level, our little office in the restaurant, you do everything yourself. You got to hook up a printer. I mean, you got to, back then it was everything done for you. Now you're
even Payne Weber and and Oppenheimer. Exactly. You're just like, I've got a runner and I've got to.
Absolutely.
I'm sure. And so how have you, did the family set not just standards for the product, but standards for the culture? Are there values, like a typical company? If you just started this from scratch and said, I'm going to create what I want.
To tell you the truth, they didn't have much of that because at the time there was only one small unit in the U.S. in Southern California, and my business partner at the time was not thinking about expanding at all in the U.S. He was a family man, had 2 young kids that he just wanted to raise. And so he had a much smaller unit, and he was content. And so when we agreed to open Bellevue, he didn't give me too much of that. He taught me how to make the food, or at least our team, and the recipe and all that. But as far as operating, service steps, business culture and the company culture, we didn't get much of that from him. And so we had to figure that out on our own and create something.
And how has that kind of grown or developed? Where is it today?
It's very difficult to build a culture, to maintain a culture, and to make sure that the culture is going the right direction. So it's something we talk about all the time. And I think it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs don't pay too much attention. So people always ask me, hey, I love to learn about how you build your business. And a lot of people don't talk about the HR aspect of the business and the culture side of the business. Every business plan, if it's a 10-page business plan, 9 out of 10 pages are sales and marketing. How are they going to promote? It's all about Facebook, online advertising, all that. But then when you start asking them, well, who's going to do the accounting? Who's going to do the HR things? Who's going to do the culture? They don't really have any answer to that because they don't think it, but I do think that's actually more important than the business itself.
Oh, it's huge. And actually, because I do a lot of recruiting in the tech space, and it's at the forefront of the conversation. And especially in recruiting, it's like, if I'm going to sell the job or sell the opportunity, I need to be able to sell the team, the addressable market, the culture, kind of not just the financials. Like you said, it's not just let's look at all the numbers.
And I didn't know that at the beginning, and I had to learn that as we went along. So most of the time when I talk to young entrepreneurs and people I mentor, that's the one thing I always bring up and say, hey, I wish somebody told me that 10 years ago.
Well, you're doing something right. You're doing something right.
Sales help with all problems. But
and it doesn't even sound like you've had a lot of turnover, that there's been anything that's...
We've been very fortunate. If you look at management level, we've retained most of the people.
And so moving to this crazy time, we talked about March, and I was supposed to be in Taiwan. With COVID, your industry just got crushed. And I know that you've kind of been transitioning, and you've stayed very focused on health and safety. You've kept managers, supervisors, everyone on payroll. So now your locations are, I guess today is August, what is it, 17th, but all your locations are open. But our state has said no more than 5
Correct.
people that are in the same family at a table.
Yeah.
And so how has your business been impacted, and how have you pivoted?
Yeah, since March 15th, which was day one, we've been through, just like everybody else, right? We've been through a lot. Our primary focus was to make sure we kept the most important asset of our company, which is the people, particularly salary level, management level people. We invested so much in them that it just didn't make any sense for us to cut them. And so, to be fully transparent, we did have to cut quite a bit of hourly staff, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, you'd have to. There's literally no business.
Correct. Yeah. But in terms of proportionally speaking, in terms of how much revenue we're down pre-COVID, post-COVID, or during COVID, we really should cut down some of the management level as well. But we made a decision not to.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully you got some PPP money, and
we did, but now it's it's on our own now because it's over.
So you partnered with Uber Eats and Grubhub, and now you're starting to do because we've gotten some delivery. It's great.
In terms of pivot, we had to quickly partner with all the delivery guys because that was really the way to get the food out, and everyone was so used to ordering through their phone. So we did that, and then once we were allowed to open 25% of seating capacity, it was all about investing in various PPE protection stuff to make sure customers that would come will feel comfortable coming.
Feel safe. So you got the masks and the gloves and the thermometer and the plexiglass.
And all of that stuff. And all of that costs a lot of money.
Oh, right? Yeah.
Everyone wants the same thing. So the demand and the supply, so the price went up. And so those are all additional costs. And now we're at a point where we're at 50%, but then everyone is working to see if we can get additional seating outside. So now,
is there seating outside?
So at University Village, they actually they shut down a street right in front of Joey's, Molly.
Yeah, I know exactly where. That's perfect.
Yeah, and so they gave us something like 30 by 30 space. So we had
that's great.
9 tables, outdoor seating, but we had to go and buy the furniture, the umbrella, and all that stuff. But we were able to generate the income and people, in the summertime in Seattle, people love sitting outside anyway.
Oh, of course. I wish it stayed like this. It feels more like New York to me, like Bellevue along Main Street. I don't know if you've seen it in Bellevue, but along Main Street, and maybe they could do this in Bellevue too for you. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. So I think the city and landlords are doing what they can to help business owners like ourselves to create more opportunities. But, let's make no mistake about it. I mean, when you're shut down by 50% because of COVID, you're just not going to do the same type of numbers as pre-COVID, right?
No, of course.
So it's tough. Restaurant industry, generally speaking, have thin margins. So when the top line comes down, you're squeezing your margins, and it's very tough to make a profit. So those are things that we have to balance. But, I'm no different than any other restaurant owners out there. Everyone is struggling. We're just trying our best to make it through. And one of the ways that we do it is I just continue to tell my team, stay true to who we are. That means the best service, the best quality food, whatever we need to do to make sure we provide consumer confidence. But to make sure when they come through, they see that we take the whole PPE stuff seriously and we keep the environment safe for them to eat at our restaurant. And if it's to go, we do the best we can to pack the food so that, it still stays hot when they eat it at home and things like that.
That's a very good point, because that's one of the biggest problems. Your food is so good when it's like hot.
Yeah. So that's the tough part about our food. Yeah. It may not always travel that well. So, I think we unfortunately, the locations we're at plus our brand, it's hard for us to pivot and be innovative. I'll give you a good example. If you look at Canlis, they have definitely been
a great job.
Yeah, you got the burger, you got the crab feast outdoor. I mean, but we're a dumpling restaurant. I can't just start selling burgers. That doesn't make any sense. I don't have the outdoor parking capacity because the mall situation that I'm in. So
will they let you do a food truck?
Yes, and we looked into that. We had partnership with Seahawks and Mariners. So they have been asking us for a couple of years now to do some type of food truck, because we're in the stadium, but they also want perhaps have us to be outside as well.
Yeah.
So we've been looking into that. But those are kind of the things. But at the end of the day, I tell my team, we can be as innovative as we want, but if we don't stay true to who we are and do a good job at our core competency, which is quality of service, quality of product, then you're not going to get business, right? People are going to stop coming. But if you do what we're supposed to do, then hopefully enough fans will continue to order from us, or at least come in and dine with us, and we can get through this, whether it's 6 to 12 months from now, we can slowly get through it. And then hopefully once we get through it, then everything's back.
And we're off to the races. Yeah.
Off to the races.
Well, I have all the faith in the world in you. I know that you said that you have been doing yoga or trying to meditate and just adding in this element. Yeah. What else do you do right now? Maybe some tips if anyone can take them. We're all trying to help each other to set yourself up for, a good week, a good day, productive, kind of staying positive in your mind.
Yeah, I would say be kind. Be kind to people around you. Be kind to your staff. Mm-hmm. Everybody is stressed.
Everybody's stressed. I know it's bringing out, and it's creating almost like social divides.
I think the difference between this versus back in 2009, 2010, is that not only are you concerned that the business is not good, there's the other piece of it, which is the most important piece, and that's the health aspect of it, right? Back in 2009, 2010, your sales are down, but you're not worried about going out and get sick.
No, you're like, I'll just go on a trip.
Right. You just go on a trip, go on a vacation, regroup, come back and work harder. But now you can't really do that. And you can't, I think us human beings, we need to be social, and we feed off of each other's energy, and we give each other high fives and hugs and things. And now the best we can do is a Zoom meeting. Right. Yeah. So I think the energy is very important. And I have been trying my best to be kind with people around me, particularly my staff who are going through a lot. Now, keep in mind, restaurant industry is not one where you can work from home.
No, right? I know. They're on the front lines every single day.
Line, if you want to make your money, you got to show up.
You got to show up, yeah.
So whether you're hourly, whether you're management, you're going to work, and every day going to work, you are taking some type of risk of getting COVID.
Yes.
So the stress level is inevitable, and the customers.
And the weight of that just on your shoulders as somebody who cares about their staff. You're like, God forbid somebody gets.
And then customers are short-tempered because they have stress. So when they come through, normally they'd be okay with us not filling the water as fast, but now everyone's cranky, right? So
they're like, if I put myself in a position to come to a restaurant, I am coming so that I don't have to do.
So personally, I try my best to still exercise, and I do yoga at home. I go out to the school and run the track a little bit, get some fresh air. I try to hack around with some friends on the golf course just to clear my mind. I think that's important. But what I would tell people, and I tell my staff, is just be nice, be kind to your staff. Be kind.
It's like all the things we learned in kindergarten, across the world. Everybody just be kind. Take a deep breath. So my ultimate question I ask everyone is, what fuels you?
Oh, it's the people.
It's a tough one, right?
No, it's easy for me. It's the people. I'll start with my mom, my sister, my family, but I love the people I work with.
Yeah.
And my business partner, and just my personal friends, since I've known since college, it's really the people. Yeah. I just want to take good care of everyone. I want to make everyone proud. That's an easy one. If I do well, people around me do well, and I want to do well for them and with them. And, I've been blessed to have this great opportunity, life-changing opportunity. And it's all because the people around me.
Yeah, right? Well, you deserve it. And I think they'd say the same thing.
That's an ezy question.
That's an easy one.
That's an easy one.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it's so good to see you. And Absolutely. I want to get to know you better. I really am sending you so many good wishes for continued success. You deserve it. And I
you.
can't wait to come to the restaurant. Maybe I'll come like tonight. I've got the girls. My husband's out of town.
Come on over. Let me know. Let me know. Thank you so much.
For sure. Good to see you, David. Take care.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, and follow us on social media to keep up with the latest news and episodes. You can also contact us at podcast@fueltalent.com to provide feedback, ask questions, and share topics or guests you would like us to cover in the future. We hope you feel inspired by our guests and that we have helped fuel your day. Join us next time for another episode of What Fuels You.